Welcome, web-slingers. With the upcoming release of the Venom film, I thought it timely to adapt an essay I wrote several years ago titled Spurned Lover, Horrific Shadow, Spider-Man and the Black Suit. We'll be examining the shadow element of literature and Jungian psychology. Many of Spider-Man's villains function as dark reflections of himself, with varying degrees of depth and complexity. The best examples are his three arch-enemies, the Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Venom. For a discussion of the Shadow, however, Venom is the best candidate because though the Green Goblin is Peter's opposite, he is troubled by his own shadow. Dr. Octopus, while a superficial contrast to Peter before the bite, is in most cases way too generic and underdeveloped. So let us begin. Peter first acquired the black suit on Battleworld in a crossover event in the 1980s called The Secret Wars. The suit could change form and responded to his thoughts, and it supplied its own webbing. It seemed great, and for some time Peter remained oddly oblivious to it being alive. Don't get any ideas that the symbiote had some evil plan to corrupt the unwitting hero. Far from it. The organism was deeply in love with its first host and would truly never get over these feelings. The conception of the symbiote being an inherently evil entity with thoughts of possessing, leeching, increasing aggression, or selfishness, or in some cases needing to eat people, came from the various adaptations, starting with the 90s cartoons, as well as the 2007 theatrical film Spider-Man 3. I agree it was the weakest of the films, though do appreciate it as a thematic conclusion to that trilogy. The symbiote wasn't evil till it was spurned and sought retribution, or something else entirely. The symbiote, a member of a race of parasites, was exiled by its kind for desiring a truly symbiotic relationship with its host, rather than drain it for all it's worth. The black suit did have an effect on Peter's mind, so it's worth consideration. Living off and greatly influencing biochemistry, the symbiote has great potential to manipulate its host's mind. However, of the half-dozen people who wore it at times, only Matt Gargan's personality was significantly influenced. When Peter wore it, the suit controlled his body some nights, going out crime-fighting. In a story by Dan Slott, it even manifested interest in Gene DeWolf. Beyond muscle control, the symbiote's influence on Peter's mind was mostly directed towards memory and focus, attempting to keep him from getting it checked out by the Fantastic Four. It doesn't become clear that there is something seriously wrong with the costume until Peter has a nightmare, where the original costume and the black suit are fighting one another over him. Before arriving at the Fantastic Four, its headquarters, in Amazing Spider-Man number 258, we see Mary Jane reveal her knowledge that she'd known his secret identity for years. Peter's futile attempts to convince her otherwise are trashed by Black Cat, literally leaping in through the window. Mary Jane leaves and Black Cat moves to do the same, but not reacting to his thoughts, the symbiote on its own initiative fires a web line at Felicia. Since he didn't try this on the other woman, she takes this as a sign his feelings for her are much stronger. He goes to the Baxter building after this, and after finding out that it's alive, he panics and tries to get it off. The symbiote resists. It's the shadow. It's part of him. It's not supposed to come off. It attempts to make its bond permanent in response, an attempt that failed due to Reed's sonic gun. The creature was captured but escaped soon later. It hadn't committed any real crimes, but as a shadow, when Peter first became aware of it, his instinct was to reject it, to externalize it, and that just puts us in its power. The alien's sympathetic failure is that it found itself flip-flopping between different interests in the early days. It was mostly love versus self-preservation. It feared discovery and the near certain rejection would cause, which is why it messed with his head a little. But knowing and acknowledging the shadow is necessary for it to be integrated, something it obviously desires, even more so once it's projected onto another person. Now, what may it represent within Peter's mind? Well, I doubt there are that many repressed memories. Peter wallows in his guilt far too much for that being an issue. No, the shadow represents attitudes Peter had before, and in some cases for a time, after his uncle was murdered. Aggression, arrogance, selfishness, the desire for revenge, and the willingness to kill. These are all attitudes, things that have been suppressed, sometimes to the point of non-existence. Wow, sounds an awful lot like the adaptations. But that is not all there is to offer. There is also increased strength and the comfort of its practical use. As Spider-Man, Peter is always suppressing his strength. He knows that at a bare minimum, one of his blows would knock a normal person to the ground. There are only a handful of occasions where we have actually seen him use his full might. This is why Spider-Man fears Venom. Spider-Man is not afraid of any other villain, but by combining the threat to his loved ones with all of his powers, immunity to his spider sense, because they are one, and superior strength, the only way Venom can be fought is by the mind, that is, evasion, trickery, or exploiting weaknesses such as sound and fire. There are positive things that it can offer besides strength, however. At the end of Superior Spider-Man, Otto Octavius suggested that Peter sabotages himself. While I don't really agree with this assessment, since I don't think he is a masochist, there could be a small element of truth to this. In order to live up to his responsibilities as a hero, for long stretches of Peter's life, he has had to put parts of his civilian life in second place, whether they were dreams of becoming a scientist or his love life. They always had to suffer in one way or another, although his cowardly fear of sharing his secret really bears most of the blame in this. After the symbiote was removed, it soon escaped and found him again in Web of Spider-Man #1. This was the famous church scene. Peter was determined to remove the thing, even if it killed him, and used a church bell to get the thing off of him. But the experience wasn't good for Peter's health as well. Exhausted and trapped underneath it, the symbiote moved him out of the way and seemingly died in the process. Immediately after this, it found a new host, Eddie Brock, and it basically acted as a psycho ex-girlfriend. Its real intent in bonding with Brock and tormenting Peter on a monthly basis was to show off its new boyfriend and convince him that he is nothing without it. The alien's deep obsession with Peter is clear. Let's see what it gives Eddie. Parker memories, check. Spider powers, check. Similar, if increasingly monstrous costume, check. Sense of humor, check. Concern with justice and protecting the innocent, check. Brock is just a stand-in for Peter. While the symbiote seems to have some kind of interest in aiding Peter's love life when they are bonded, it has a habit of targeting the woman's life when it's bonded with Brock. Peter first became aware of Venom's existence when he came home to find that his wife had been terrorized by Venom. Not long afterwards, Venom encountered Black Cat at the apartment after the Parkers had moved. He proceeded to break her nose. I really wouldn't be surprised if there is a form of jealousy involved. While the symbiote is a symbol, and an especially good one, in the film and video games that deviate from the comics, it is also its own unique character. The alien realizes that it's just that, an alien. It can create a powerful, mutually beneficial relationship with its host, but even if permanent, both parties sharing their very thoughts, its bond will never be as great as a natural bond between a man and a woman. On the issue of MJ and Black Cat, I will say at that point in continuity of number 258, Peter had never felt as strongly for a woman as he had with Felicia, so she might have been right in her assessment. But the symbiote could read and examine Peter's mind far better than he, being able to reach into the unconscious and corners of his mind. He did not appear, so it knew his true feelings for both of them. As Spider-Man's dark mirror, Venom represents MJ's greatest fear, that her husband will become possessed by his shadow and become a menace to her and society. We see a very interesting glimpse at their dynamic in What If the Other. In this alternate universe What If, Spider-Man fails to get resurrected. Let's just skip it and say Peter was in a very bad state because in this What If he failed to find the balance between the spider and the man. Anyway, the alien costume sensed that he was dying and abandoned its present host, Matt Gargan. It bonded with Peter and healed him, but fearing rejection failed to heal his mind sufficiently for him to have a real degree of control. The symbiote then went out with his possessed body on a mission, its goal to breed its spawn with a woman that Peter loved, so that when he was awoken he would have a vested interest in keeping the symbiote. Zombie Spider-Man broke into Avengers Tower to try to get Mary Jane, literally facing her greatest fear, something that left her huddled in a dark corner of her apartment for hours, years before. She calmly told the creature that it could have her body, but her soul belonged to Peter Parker. Intimidated by the depth of her relationship with Peter, zombie Spider-Man went to the grave of Gwen Stacy instead and resurrected her. Weird, I know. But not every time Peter dons a black costume are we to keep a sonic weapon on standby to see Peter flip-flopped between his classic attire and cloth versions of black suit for a long time after he was separated from the symbiote. It wasn't until after his first battle with Venom that he retired them, only donning black cloth suits on rare occasions, such as Back in Black or Family Business. There's a difference between Peter's personality as classic Spider-Man and Black Suit Spider-Man. This difference is largely a conscious one, and when aliens are involved, the persona invokes the costume, not the other way around. We see pretty early that criminals find this new look a bit more intimidating, and Peter makes use of this on occasion. He is slightly more brutal when battling groups of criminals, and finds a bit more success interrogating them. Certainly by the time we reach Kraven's Last Hunt, we see Spider-Man near his darkest, though as he said it himself, he was buried alive for 2 weeks. The symbolism of him rising out of his own grave is not lost on us. Finally, we see Peter Back in Black, after the events of the Civil War, with Aunt May in the hospital, shot. Peter chooses to wear a black costume to reflect his current mood, and among other adventures, fought Iron Man and Kingpin, who each bore responsibility for his aunt's condition. In the latter case, beyond humiliating Kingpin, defeating him in prison with such ease it astonished readers, as he realized just how much he had held back on the formidable but non-powered crime lord over the years. Spider-Man had just committed his first murder as a superhero a few months back, killing Morlun in the other, and while he hadn't evolved into the Punisher just yet, he tells Fisk that he will come back and kill him if his aunt dies. Even amidst all of this, a wanted fugitive, Peter still has not lost his essential humanity. We still see him doing good for the city, and his relationship with Mary Jane certainly didn't suffer, as Sensational Spider-Man Annual #1 shows. Ultimately, the black suit, whatever form it takes, represents the shadow, the part of ourselves we ignore, deny, or suppress, externalized, as an alien influence. Spurned, it finds another, and haunts us. Why does the symbiote wearer get Spider-Man's powers? Because it's a part of him, and so goes the love-hate relationship. The symbiote is a frightening, monstrous thing. Otherwise, Peter wouldn't have rejected it time and time again. One of many failures of Spider-Man writers in recent years is that they ended Venom as an antagonist, the symbiote bonding with Flash Thompson. While 2 or 3 years without it every once in a while is a good thing, as Venom used to be one of the most overexposed characters in the industry, his absence was missed and is a major flaw in the superhero aspect of Peter's life presently. Ultimately, whether it's an alien creature or simply a new attitude, in the future Spider-Man needs to deal with his shadow by either acknowledging the negative, impure aspects of himself and killing them, as in Spider-Man 3, or by integrating the shadow into himself. This is a dangerous proceeding, since it is both light and dark. He could become possessed or corrupted as he comes to grips with its alternating characteristics of love and selfishness, empathy and hate. But the shadow has gifts to offer, including enhanced powers and a more mature and whole self. And the conquest of the shadow by either means is one of several important steps in transformations Peter must pass in order to complete his journey. One of a few JMS managed very well, until they were prematurely scrapped and ignored as a result of the anti-progress attitudes that were responsible for One More Day, Brand New Day, and that continue to this day. Up next time, we'll be going over the most impactful comic book storyline of all time, the night Gwen Stacy died. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can donate if you're so inclined. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. I'd like to hear your take and any requests you may have. Until next time, Excelsior.